Well, hello and welcome to Sunday Encore, where we have candid conversations about the practical applications of Sunday's message. Well, hey, we are back for another episode of Sunday Encore, where we sit down to recall the truths of Sunday's message and consider some practical applications to our everyday lives. If you're a regular listener of Sunday Encore, would you please like, share, subscribe, share the link with somebody? It would greatly help us reach more people with the message of Jesus. We are so excited to continue our conversation for our Choose Joy series, and we're here today on this wonderful day talking about the choice, the sacrificial choice.
I'm sorry, I'm listening to you, but I just got lost into the way you said our everyday lives. It's so funny. You say it like that almost every week. It just gets me.
I've got a script.
It's like you don't just have a script, man. You got a flow.
I've got a nuance.
Our everyday
People
lives.
keep telling me I've got a radio voice.
Yeah.
And I'll take it. I'm here for it.
What they say is you got to face radio loves is what they're saying.
Oh, let's go. That did me dirty there.
Because they said that to me too growing up. You got to face radio love.
I've never heard that one.
No?
That's good.
It's such a burn.
It's
it's the best kind of burn
time.
because it sounds like a compliment. You got to face radio with love. Like it sounds like a compliment.
Like,
ooh.
Wait a
Let me
second.
think about that for a second. Yeah, talking about
Amazing.
choosing joy. Choosing joy. Joy is a choice. Joy is a choice. We need to be led. Choices lead. Feelings follow. This is
Very good.
This is just this world we're living in. I think it's just a sign of maturity too. I think this is an adult maturity thing. You decide, hey, life's not just about what I want to do, but it's what I have to do, what I need to do. And,
Yeah.
I think it's also a sign of spiritual maturity. You recognize it's not just about our feelings. You know, it's not just how I feel about the day, but making decisions that will deliberate decisions versus those fleeting feelings, right? Or fickle feelings. And so, yeah, just kind of talking about how do you produce the type of joy. So we talked about choosing prayer, choosing purity, kind of staying right with God. And then, this week we're just discussing this idea of choosing praise, that praise is actually a choice.
Yeah.
That we have to make a decision that, hey, this is the day the Lord has made, as Psalm 118 says, I will rejoice and be glad in it.
Yeah.
We sing that song, Come on my soul. Don't you get tired on me. What is
Shy
it?
on
Shy
me.
on me. Don't you get tired or shy.
Yeah.
But, I think there is
Lift up your song.
Yeah, there's a lion inside of you. Come on. I
Get
think
up.
there is that notion, again, I think it's like we do it, and I've done it too. So when I say we, and I'm talking about me, it's like we just are looking for the feelings to drive us, to drive those decisions. I know that we talk about praise, we're talking about in it. It doesn't have to just be Sunday morning context. So that's, for a lot of us, that's kind of what we naturally think about as a default. But, we come into church.
But even still about that context.
Even about that context, you come into church, depending on what your family dynamic is like, and, age of your kids, and, how good of a communicator you are to your spouse, depending on how all that morning routine rolls out, you end up in church and you grab a cup of coffee from the cafe and you just you're just happy you just made it here.
Yeah.
And then you get into this praise cons, but you still got a coffee in your hand or your hands in your pocket. You're still kind of maybe, seething over a conversation you had in the car, or the way your kid disrespected you, or wish you responded differently in a situation, or whatever. There's I'm not speaking from personal experience.
Yeah, seriously. sounds a little personal here.
But and then you get into this praise and you're like, I just don't feel like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I just don't feel like it.
Or even if I could be a little bit more cheeky, like, the mix maybe isn't hitting it. The worship team's not playing your favorite song.
Oh yeah.
We're not starting with praise.
Totally.
Things aren't maybe going the way that, if they played gratitude, I'd really feel it. You know what I mean? I'd really feel it. And I mean, sure, great song.
If they played Shine Jesus Shine.
Shine Jesus.
Come on now.
Yeah, honestly, that song kind of slaps.
Or Celebrate Jesus. Celebrate Jesus, celebrate. Do 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 do. That was
Don't even think I know that song.
I think that was Ron Canoli. Ron Canoli sounds like a donut, but
or a cannoli.
I think Ron. I could be totally butcher that name, but I just remember that was the very first song I learned how to play on the piano, like worship song. I was so excited about that. Do 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 do.
Yeah, I probably still couldn't play that.
Probably can do it. Anyway, so just understanding that praise is in this category of choice.
Yeah.
It's not in the category of feeling.
Yeah.
Isaiah 61, Jesus says he's come to bring the oil of joy for mourning and the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. That there is actually, and I think the words are amazing, because a garment is something you got to put on. It's not something that comes from within. It's something you have to put on. Yeah. And I think there's just something really even spiritual about this idea. We talk about a spiritual problem, the spirit of heaviness is a spiritual problem.
Yeah.
It actually demands a spiritual solution. And Jesus came in, obviously, as the fulfillment of that solution, which we then pursue, right, and emulate. But there's a garment that we need to actually put on. There's a choice that we need to make in order to engage in praise.
Right.
And in order to produce joy. And so it's almost like you praise before you're joyful in order to get joy, where you don't praise is the precursor to joy versus joy the precursor to praise. Because we often want to feel joy in order to praise. It's like what Jesus says, with your treasure is where your heart is also. He doesn't he always it's like the precursors in the right, where your treasure is, there your heart will be. Your heart will follow that. Versus just put your money where you want, like where you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And I think praise and joy are the same in the same context. It's like, hey, you want to, don't just wait for the feeling of joy to praise. If you praise, you will then experience joy.
Right. Because in your presence is what?
Is the fullness of joy.
Right.
Right. And actually, the psalmist says we enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. That's actually how you get into the presence of God.
Absolutely.
Is by taking the focus off of yourself, because what you're doing by not wanting to praise, because you're not feeling about it, what you are doing is you're seething in your own emotions, your own feelings, and your focuses are generally on you or how mistreated you feel you were, or how you don't like this song, or how you, me. And of course I'm not going to feel the joy. I'm not in the presence of God.
Right.
You want in the presence of God, you got to go in with praise. You got to make a decision to praise through your pain or through your frustration, and you will see Jesus on the other side of that and that praise.
Absolutely.
So it is a choice, easier said than done often.
Yeah.
But one that is within our grasp to make.
And one worth making even when your feelings don't actually change. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Like I don't feel it every Sunday, but every Sunday you ought to see me going for it. Because, there's a myriad of reasons, but I know who God is. I've had a revelation of truth, and I'm going to give him to the best of my ability with everything I have in that moment, a praise that I would consider him worthy of. And that is not because I feel good that day or, things are kicking it. To be honest, I'm fighting my mind of trying to fix 100 different problems most of the time, but I'm there, and I'm giving him everything I can in the moment, being as present as I possibly can.
Absolutely. And it is a decision. Psalm 95 says, "Come, let us sing for joy to the Lord. Let us shout aloud to the rock of our salvation. Come before him with thanksgiving." So, and extol him with music and song. So again, we are coming in and we are thanking him for what he has done. You're thankful for sure for the future, but really you're looking back and think, God, look, you're faithful. You're thankful for what he has done at the cross. You're thankful for what he's done in your life. You're thankful for the salvation, the hope that he offers, the grace that he's given, the mercy that is made new every morning. And you're thanking, you are celebrating for what he has done. Then it goes on, and come, let us bow and worship, and let us kneel before the Lord of our Maker, for he is our God, and we are his people of his pasture, the flock under his care. And here we see in this passage that there is both praise and there is worship in our context. That's why we do both. That praise is when we get to celebrate what God has done. We celebrate for who we are. We're celebrating for what he has done. It's a thankful approach. Where worship is more of this, God, I'm just thankful for who you are. Like, I'm just so thankful for that you are my maker, you are my healer, you are my provider, you are my source, you are my supply. You have this, you are the one who holds all things and knows all things. And you have this tension of, I celebrate for what you have actually done for me, and I also then worship you for who you are. Praise is this horizontal approach where we get to almost, it's kind of like, it's funny, this is not maybe a pure example, but it's an example I love, because Silas, your little boy. I think he's 6, right? 6 years old. Every time we're in a new environment, it happened at Summer Blast. It happens quite often, and it's he does it in a sense of he does it with a sense of like pride, which is beautiful, and not in a bad way, not a negative pride. He's just so proud. He'll often tell his friends when I'm around, "Hey, that's my uncle. Hey, that's my uncle." Like he just wants to tell people, "Hey, that's my uncle."
Yeah.
You know, and he's just so proud of declaring our relationship. You know,
right.
And for our listeners, he's not my nephew for real.
Yeah.
For real. But he is my nephew in the spirit. Like I've been a part of his life from day one, you know. So before day one, you know. So, but it's that same idea, I believe, with praise. It's like, hey, look, let me just tell you who God is.
Yeah,
like,
look at him.
Look at my
he's
God. Mine.
Yeah,
look what he's done. I'm just so proud. I'm telling him, but in a way, I'm telling him as I tell others.
Yeah, it's like truly boasting in the Lord, and there's obviously a myriad of different ways you can do that.
Yeah,
but it's like that's praise. Like
right.
I'm
boasting of it publicly in front of others. I don't care who knows.
Yeah.
You know, where worship is more vertical, right? So that's a horizontal. Where worship is vertical. It's between you and God. It's God. There is no one like you, and it's just now this beautiful relationship you have with God, this personal communication, this personal communion, where you just get to abide in His presence, sit at His footstool, come boldly into the throne room of grace, you know. And so I think you have this beautiful, and then you just realize that praise is a choice. You know, praise ultimately is a choice, where worship is a response. Like you are compelled to worship when you get a revelation of who God is. You know, it's Isaiah and Isaiah 60. Isaiah 60, like, woe am I? Who am I? Like, woe, I'm a man of unclean lips. When he gets a vision of God, he's like, who am I? Like, he just is like drawn to worship. Like, I'm not even worthy to be in your presence. And so there's this like moment between the you as the created and the creator. You have this awareness, and it's just drawn to worship for who he is. Where praise is a choice where we make to declare his goodness to others and boast. And so I just feel like if we can get our head wrapped around this, that I'm not just waiting for the feelings. I'm not just waiting for the moment, quote unquote, where I can enter in. I'm not waiting for you as the worship leader or the pastor or whoever is on stage or whoever's in my life to inspire me enough to actually engage in spiritual worship. But I'm actually, as a follower of Jesus, I'm just going to make the decision that I am going to praise. Yeah. Because he's worthy of my praise.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And how I get closer to Jesus is actually how I get joy is by praising first, and joy will follow.
Right. Yeah. 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 It takes our eyes off our circumstances in boasting. That's kind of what pity is, right? It's like boasting in my problems,
right?
But praise is boasting in the Lord. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like when I make that switch, that my problems, my situations, my apathy, all those things, they become quite very small when I fix my eyes on the big thing. Yeah. The big one. But when I'm so focused on me, you know, on my pity, then that seems to be the most apparent and the most important thing that's going on in the moment. And it truly is not.
Yeah. And it's really, I mean, that goes right to the very kind of main point here is that in life, there's only really one thing we can control, and it's our response. And it really comes down to what you just said, is that are we going to praise or are we going to have pity? You know, is it praise or pity? Are we going to be inward focused or are we going to be outward focused?
Right.
Are we going to be temporally focused or eternally focused?
Yeah.
You know, are we going to focus on us and ourselves or are we going to focus on God and who he is? And really that becomes our choice.
Yeah. It really boils down to that.
It's your choice. Joshua had that decision when he was leading the people of Israel. He's like, you're going to serve the God of the Amorites and the Amalekites and whatever you're going to then do that. But if you're going to serve God, then serve God. But as for me, we are going to serve that God. Like that's where we're going.
Yeah.
And I think we all have to kind of make that decision. Like, hey, I can't control what life happens. Like there's life that's full of things that happen to you and you have to learn how to respond. But are you going to respond with praise or are you going to respond through pity? Is really will kind of really determine the next step of your life or the next season of your life, how you respond, right? So, so we just kind of were discussing the nature of praise, because praise, we have one language. We have English is a very it's complicated in the sense that we can't. Grammar is so weird.
It's complicated in the sense that you have to understand it.
You have to understand it.
You got to understand context really well.
And just like, things that you think would make sense by how they're spelled don't make sense at all. But anyway, but the Hebrew language or the Greek language that the New Testament was written with, it's got more nuances to it. There's a lot more, like the word love, for example. We have love, but in Greek, there's 4 words for love.
Right.
So it's like.
But we would understand those based on context.
We would, yeah.
But they have those words based on
so
the
we would
actual
say,
word.
we'd say, I love my wife.
Yeah.
And I love pizza.
Yeah, totally.
And I love New York City.
Yeah.
Well, obviously those aren't the same.
No, totally.
Or they shouldn't be anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But
if you're able to, have common sense,
right?
you could probably pick up the context between those words.
Yeah. Where Greek Hebrew has like specific words. And then the Hebrew, which is the Old Testament mostly written in, is more of a pictorial language, which means it's got even more nuances than that. So the word praise, if you're going through the Psalms, there are 7 or 8 different praises that are Hebrew words that have, they're definitely an alignment as far as a theme goes, but they're nuanced a little bit differently. So we went through them all. We don't need to go through them all.
Yeah.
But essentially it is this idea, the last one, Tehillah, this exuberant singing. It's outside. Psalm 37 says, I will extol the Lord at all times. His praise will always be on my lips. There is this, it just reiterates this idea that praise is outward.
Yeah.
It's outward. It's for others to see. I think of King David and his wife, Michal, when he would come back and he's dancing in his loincloth. He's like, I will become more undignified than this. Like, I'm going to praise God. Like, it's not about me. This is an outward declaration of the faithfulness of God.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, if we can get a revelation that praise is a decision that we make that produces joy. So you're here today, you're listening today, and you're like, I'm still having a hard time finding joy. Like, even though you decided to pray every day, even decided you're pursuing purity, keeping things right between you and God, and you're still struggling to find joy in your heart. Well, then start to praise. There's lots of songs out there that'll help you get going.
Yeah.
But just start praising and see what happens on the other side. I've never met a sad person who sings praise. Like, it's like whistling is always you don't hear a sad whistler.
That's
like, think
so
about
true.
that. Like, there's something about whistling.
How do you whistle sadly?
How do you whistle sadly? Like, I get you can have a sad song. I get that. But like, there's something about praise. When you sing praise music, when you sing worship music that declares the goodness of God, your soul will come into alignment. Absolutely. It will. It may take a little bit of time.
The scriptures say so.
It'll just happen. Yeah. And I think you just get in the habit of making that part of your morning routine or your daily routine.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the ways. There's lots of different prayers that you can pray on a regular basis, but almost exclusively you should start with that. In not asking for anything, in not really requesting yet those kinds of things, but speaking praise about God.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's no I's or me's in the beginning of your prayers.
No.
It's, this is who you are.
And
I praise you because you are holy.
Totally.
Of course, the Lord's Prayer.
The Lord's Prayer. We use that ACTS acronym, adoration, consecration, thanksgiving, supplication, right? Yeah. So you start with adoration. It's all God focused. It's all upward.
Yeah.
It's all upward.
It's how we shift our spirit, get into alignment with God's.
Yeah.
And really grow in that way. And it does change. It truly does. It truly does change. And I love that psalm, your praise will always be on my lips. There's such a decidedness.
Yeah.
There's such a, that's not you can't whoopsie praise being always on your lips.
100%.
There's a determination there.
Yeah. And we were just talking about this before we started is, when you look at life in every aspect or every arena of life, nobody ever succeeds great things on feelings alone. There's a pre-decidedness that I'm going to do what's hard. I'm going to do what others aren't willing to do. I'm going to do what others aren't doing. I'm going to be consistent in doing even what seems like the simple things, but doing it consistently every day.
Yeah.
Whether that's weightlifting or whether that's starting a business or whether that's having a great marriage, whatever it is, it can be in anything. There's a pre-decidedness that I'm not going to be led by my feelings. I'm just going to do what I know I need to do, and do what's right.
Yeah.
That's going to produce in me the results that I desire to have.
Yeah.
And I think this, again, comes along into that same category. It's like you just can't wait for the feeling to trickle in, or the emotion to be stirred, or for that moment to be just right, or for the stars to align, or whatever. You have to just pre-decide, I'm going to be a person of praise. I'm going to be a person who gives adoration to God, for he alone is worthy. And if salvation and, him providing an opportunity to be in a relationship with the Father, is as if that's some small feat.
Yeah.
That's more than enough reasons to praise. That's more than enough reasons to make our lifelong commitment to daily offer praise.
Absolutely.
To God. Jesus even says when he was Palm Sunday, when he was, riding into Jerusalem on the donkey, and the people were gathering around and waving palm branches and waving their palms in the air and praising him. Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And the Pharisees were like, you need to get your disciples under control, And he says, but if they keep quiet, then even the stones themselves will praise.
Yeah.
Like there is this expectation as followers of Jesus that we are called to praise.
So good.
And if we don't do it, then the stones themselves will praise.
Yeah.
And there's a whole other backstory to that, but that's a call there's a call to praise, that there's an expectation to praise.
Yeah.
And, but not just for God's, self glory, because he understands, I think God understands that praise produces joy.
Mm-hmm.
Praise produces joy.
Which is all for his self-glory. 110%. He is so determined that we would have the opportunity to give him glory. Not because he's egotistical or anything like that, but because everything, the stones, the mountains, the sky, the stars, the sea, everything declares the glory of God.
Yeah.
Because that's its rightful place.
Yeah, that's where it sits.
And that's our rightful place. But that's not a feelings thing. That's a determining thing.
That's a lining with creation thing.
Yeah, exactly. With who we were created to be, what we were created to do, so that he could receive glory. That's his intention for our lives.
Totally. So if you're here, if you're listening, you're like, hey, I need to choose joy. Well, then choose prayer. Choose purity.
Yeah.
And then today, choose praise.
Yeah, very good.
Choose praise. And we're going to finish it up next week with the last choice. But this is something we can do.
Yeah,
you can do it.
It is possible.
Doesn't matter how you feel today. You may feel like you're just everything. The world's falling apart around you. Maybe watching the news too long.
Yeah,
you feel the world is crushing. Just turn the news off.
Yeah,
turn the praise on.
Yeah,
and see what comes on the other side of that.
So good.
Yeah,
love it. What an encouragement. Thanks for joining us today for Sunday Encore. We pray this sparks Jesus-centered conversations in your home or small group as we continue to grow into an overflowing relationship with Jesus.